This is the fourth talk in my Get Out of the Way series of video talks. Here are 3 stories from the early days of computer games. All of these stories can be found in my book, Lucky That Way. Andy Warhol talked about 15 minutes of fame. Well, if I've had mine, it was around 2 of the most successful computer games in the world. Shanghai, the original computer solitaire Mahjong, and computer Card Solitaire. I love the stories behind these 2 games. I hope you will too. Shanghai began when I was the director of entertainment software, a computer game producer for Activision. A mutual friend introduced me to a young man named Brody Lockhart. We'd made arrangements to have breakfast the next morning and, embarrassingly, I'd forgotten and was reminded when Brody called me that afternoon to find out what had happened. He was angry with me, for good reason, but the problem was exacerbated by the fact that he was in a wheelchair and the effort to go out to breakfast was difficult for him. I apologized profusely, convinced him to let me come immediately to Stanford University, where he worked, and meet with him. Arriving at the university, I became aware that being in a wheelchair was a minor issue. Brody had been a Stanford gymnast. One day he had an accident on the trampoline and ended up a quadriplegic. He was completely paralyzed from the neck down. We talked for a while about creating educational products, and I told him that Activision wasn't into that, so it didn't look like we'd be able to work together. But as I was leaving, I told him what I told every programmer I met. If you ever have a computer game, I'd love to take a look at it. He replied, if I ever do, I'll give you a call. About 5 months later, December of '84, I got a call from Brody. Brad, I've got a game I want to show you. I was extremely busy getting ready for the January Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. My schedule was completely full. If it had been anyone but Brody, I'd have told him that I couldn't meet with him till after the first of the year. But it was Brody, and I owed him. Brody, I'm really busy. The only time I have is Christmas Eve morning. Will that work for you? That'll be fine. Can you come by my home? I sure can. I'll see you then. And don't worry, I won't forget. Christmas Eve morning found me in Brody's home, talking with Brody and his mother Dorothy. They were showing me a set of Mahjong tiles and explaining how you could play a solitaire game with them. Brody said, the problem is that it takes a long time to stack the tiles into a shape called the turtle. However, if we could let the computer stack the tiles, well, the game would be easy to set up. At this point, he showed me his computer, a Macintosh, and on the screen was this elegant stack of Mahjong tiles. Additionally, the game was simple yet compelling. I told Brody, it's wonderful. I'm sure that people will want to play this game again and again. After much discussion, Brody decided to let me have a copy of the game to test how compelling it really was, but only if I'd sign a simple non-disclosure. I agreed, and Brody said, Mom, will you give me a hand? Dorothy got up from her chair, walked over to Brody, and put a stick into his mouth. Brody began hitting the keys with the pointed end of the stick, bringing up the non-disclosure and printing it. It was then that it dawned on me that he had programmed this elegant game, including creating all of the beautiful graphics, by holding a stick in his mouth. I was awed by the accomplishment. My wife Kathy was the first person I showed the game to. She didn't like computer games. I figured it'd be a good test. It was the night of December 26th. I left her sitting at the kitchen table playing the game and went to watch some television. Later I went to bed. I woke up at 5 a.m. Kathy was still not in bed. I called out to her and she responded, I'll be there in a minute. I just want to play one more game. I thought, we might have something here. The next person I showed it to was my good friend and associate, Sam Nelson. He took the game home so he and his wife Paula could look at it over the weekend. On Monday morning he came into my office and asked to borrow my Macintosh. Is yours broken? I asked him. No, Paula wouldn't let me bring it to work. She wanted to play that game you gave us to test. When our director of engineering came in, threw a disc on my desk and said, don't let me have this game again. I'm not getting any work done. I knew we had something. Well, we licensed the game and marketing called it Shanghai because it used Mahjong tiles and it truly Shanghaied you. My mother was one of those who was Shanghaied. She loved playing the game and played it whenever she had the chance. They'd visit us every year for a few weeks around Thanksgiving and Christmas. This particular year, 1986, was not much different from the years before, except that my dad's desire to play cards was hampered by my mom's desire to play Shanghai. "Where's Martha?" my dad was saying. "Are we playing cards tonight or not?" "She's out in the family room playing Shanghai. She told me she was only playing one more game." "She's always playing that dumb game. I'll never get addicted by some stupid computer game." All night long I was trying to come up with a computer game that would hook my dad. Then I thought, he loves to play cards. Maybe I could put Card Solitaire on the computer. Maybe that would hook him. So Computer Card Solitaire was born. Microsoft told me a few years ago that their research had shown that it was, and probably still is, the most played computer game in the world. Oh yes, the next Christmas my folks had to bring their own computer. My dad was hooked on Computer Solitaire. Probably my favorite story from the early days of computer gaming is about Pitfall 2. Pitfall 2 was originally created by David Crane for the Atari 2600 game machine. It was the sequel to the extremely popular Pitfall, and the first game in the world to use 8K of computer memory. David had figured out how to boost the chip memory from 4K to 8K and took great advantage of the additional space. One of my first jobs as a game producer for Activision was to produce the Atari 800 and Commodore 64 versions of Pitfall 2. Well, the programmers were beside themselves. David had 8K of memory, a milestone in computer gaming. And all of a sudden, these two programmers had 64K. The potential of the extra memory was beyond anything any of us had ever dreamed of. We had a meeting and the programmers, Mike for the Atari, Tim for the C64, and I discussed the alternatives. Finally, Tim decided that he wanted to enhance the graphics. The C64 had a better graphics engine, and he believed that he could make the game much more attractive. On the other hand, Mike was stuck with the exact same graphics engine that was in the 2600 game machine. There was no way he could improve the graphics for the computer version. Mike said, "I want to create some new levels, make the game more challenging, more exciting." Following my own advice of getting out of the way, I agreed with both plans. For 3 months, Mike spent a minimum of 18 hours a day working on his new version of Pitfall 2, often sleeping in the office. He almost killed himself, and I mean that literally. Finally, they were both finished. Tim's graphics were leading edge for the time, and Mike's new game had over 300 new screens that you entered once you'd finished the original game. I went to marketing with the great news. I've got 2 terrific versions of Pitfall 2 for you. The C64 version has terrific new graphics, and even better, the Atari version has an entire new game that you enter once you've completed the original game. Marketing didn't agree. The Atari gameplay can't be different from the C64. We're marketing them together. You're going to have to strip the extra game out of the Atari version. There was nothing I could do to change their mind. All the way back to the design center, I was racking my brain as to what I'd tell Mike. Then the answer came to me. I called a meeting of the 3 of us. "Tim, they loved your graphics and believe the game will be a great success." "Mike, I have good and bad news for you. Which do you want first?" "Give me the bad news first." They told me that the 2 games have to have the same identical gameplay, that we have to strip the extra game out of the Atari version. "God, what's the good news?" "We're going to have the biggest damn Easter egg you ever saw." A big smile broke out on Mike's face. And in case you don't know, in computer games an Easter egg is a hidden feature that isn't even known by the publishing company's management. Only the programmer and producer are aware of the feature. Easter eggs got their start at Atari. The Atari Corporation was run by the most arrogant, ignorant management in the history of computer entertainment. Even though they were owned by Time Warner, an entertainment company, management wouldn't allow the programmers, the game designers, to get any credit for creating the games Atari was selling. Well, Warren Robinette, the creator of the world's first computer adventure game, Adventure, didn't like this rule. He wanted credit. So he put a puzzle in Adventure that, once solved, put you in a room with his name flashing in colored lights. And Easter eggs were born. So that's what we did with the Atari version of Pitfall 2. When the player completed a perfect game, accomplished all of the original game's challenges without any mistakes, and in perfect order, they were taken by a moving sidewalk into a new game. And there they were able to experience a brand new challenge that was actually more compelling and more exciting than the original game. Every once in a while I get a call from customer service. "Brad, we've got a C64 customer here who insists that a friend with an Atari version has an entire extra game that he doesn't have. Do you have any idea what he's talking about? No, I don't. Oh, he's probably just confused. With the enhanced C64 graphics, the games look really different from each other. Well, this finishes the first set of my Get Out of the Way video talks. In the coming months, I'll be posting a few more. It's my objective to have a dozen of these talks posted to my YouTube channel by the end of the year. Brad Frager here. Thank you once again for joining me. Till next time, bye for now.